Hi, so welcome everyone. I think we are at time to start this presentation. Hope you all had a good lunch. So I'm going to talk about the API scoreboards today. So just to start with a little bit about myself. I'm a software engineer at Google and I have been working with this team known as Apigee, if you know the product in Google Cloud. Um, and for the last 2 years, my team has been focused on solving the API governance problem. And my focus especially has been on building tools and capabilities which will help empower API developers to make right decisions on how they can build better APIs themselves. Um, so to start with the talk, let's set up some background. Let's start with trying to answer some of these questions, which I'm sure most of the organizations are facing nowadays. How many APIs is your organization operating with? It might seem like a very simple question, but we asked this question to a lot of our partners, and none of them were able to come up with a confident, finite number. But most of them said that this number is huge, but there was no easy way for them to figure out how many APIs did their company actually have. And this is the root of a lot of issues. Like the mere knowledge of what exists in my company is very hazy for a lot of organizations today. And let's say even if you get past the stage of visibility of APIs, let's say you do know how many APIs are there in your company, do you actually understand them well? Let's take a scenario where you have a bunch of APIs. The easiest ones to know about are obviously the good quality APIs that we call. They are easily discoverable, they are well documented, they are always up to date, and they are secure. These are the kind of APIs that most of the people in the company would know about. But then there are still some more APIs that you discover which are still well documented, updated, but you are not sure about how frequently they are updated or they are secure enough. Then you find more APIs in your company which are still discoverable. You can still understand how to use them, but they are not up to date. They are not maintained well very frequently. And then you discover some more random APIs which you don't know how to use. You don't know if they are updated enough. Basically, you don't understand what to do with them. And if this was not enough, there can still be more invisible APIs in your company which you are still not aware about. These are like mines in your API collection which you randomly discover one day and you don't know how to handle them. So if all these layers were already not enough, we haven't even started thinking about issues that we face when you start operationalizing these APIs. So that is another added layer to this. There is more variability introduced with fragmented API gateway and management solution that your company uses. And these solutions often operate with very closed standards. Then there are diverse API protocols, GraphQL, Async API, and any others that your company uses. And obviously, not to lose out on that, heterogeneous deployment environments spanning across public and private clouds. So when you put all these layers and information together, it's just chaos in one slide. And we know that these issues are not new to organizations. A lot of organizations have been facing them since a long time. But in recent years, COVID-19 sort of forced companies to make this aggressive investment into API first strategy. And this has led to rapid adoption of API in almost all sectors. So when you think about it, APIs are adopted in almost all sectors right now, be it e-commerce, ecosystems, experiences. You just think about it and APIs are there. So when you think about this another adoption layer, I can't even put this layer together with the already chaotic slide that we had. Um, so basically, because of this rapid adoption of APIs, it is giving rise to unmanageable sprawl in a lot of organizations. So we need a solution for API governance right now more than ever because of such rapid adoption. So when we started thinking about the solution to this problem, we were thinking about what are the requirements of this system. So to start with, the basic ability we need is the visibility into the APIs of my organization. We need like a common source of truth, which will tell me what exists in my organization, irrespective of their origin, style, or deployment environments. Once you have all this information in place, you also need the ability to define industry-grade governance standards in your organization, and you should also make sure that they are adopted without slowing you down or without adding any friction to the development. And lastly, once you have a governance process in place, it should also be possible to understand, monitor, and always improve your overall API quality. This is the part where organizations start getting value from a good governance program in their company. So my team has been working on this open source project, which we call as the Registry API, in the effort to solve this governance problem. We have been working on it for almost 2 years now, and I'm going to share some details of it and also an example of how we can use it. So the focus of this solution is to empower the organizations to govern their own APIs, and we try to do this by offering them control and customization. So let's look at the components of this system. The first one is the registry, which is a data store which stores all your API information. And it also has an additional entity which we call as artifacts. And these artifacts are really like arbitrary data. You can store anything that you want in them. And their purpose is to basically support and enrich the API information that we are storing in the registry. Second is the scoreboards. These are again special purpose artifacts which store a collection of scores for your APIs. They essentially present an overview of the APIs for you. And these are again, scoreboards can be calculated based on a configuration, and they are totally customizable. Like users can create multiple scoreboards across different themes, like if I want to look at my security scores together, if I want to look at my design scores. So there can be scoreboards created for a particular theme and multiple of them. And the third component is the controller, which is basically the automation unit. It automates all these operations together. It is again based on a configuration, and it is again customizable. So the configuration for the controller basically is a definition of dependency relationships in the registry. It tries to maintain those relationships in the registry, and in turn, we make sure that things are always up to date in our data store. Let's get into a little bit more detail of how these components interact with each other. I'm going to take an example of calculating lint scores for our APIs. So let's assume that we already have all the API information uploaded to the registry. So the first step here is someone from the platform team will start by defining a scorecard definition, and they will upload it to the registry. So the platform team here can be a single person or a team of people in an organization who are responsible for um, defining rules and policies for API development processes in their organization. So they start with defining a scorecard definition in the registry. Next, the controller picks up this update in the registry, and then it again reads a configuration, the controller specific configuration from the registry. And from there, it finds that there is a dependency between the scoreboards, the scorecard definition, and the specs. So it knows that now it should recompute all the scoreboards for the specs according to this new definition. So it sends a trigger to the scoreboard framework to start taking actions on all the specs that are stored in the registry. The scoreboard again gets the trigger, and it reads its specific definition from the registry. And what this definition is the same one that the platform team had uploaded to the registry. It's a centralized definition which tells the scoreboard framework how to calculate a particular score. In this case, it defines how to calculate the lint score from the lint results that we have uploaded to the registry. So it gets that definition, it calculates the score, and it stores the computed score again back into registry in the form of artifacts. And once this is all done, the scores are available to be consumed by the API developers. This is available at the API level, but you can always, there can always be a UI layer to visualize the scoreboards together. So a little bit more about what this system is doing and what it's not doing. This is not a scoring system. Like, it doesn't have opinions on what is good or bad API quality. It doesn't tell you how to score your APIs, but instead, it is offering a way to manage your APIs and their scores. It is also empowering the organizations to make their own decisions on what they think is important for their API quality. And lastly, it is also built completely open source to make sure that we learn and build and grow this with the community. So let's take an example of using this system in on a Google API collection. So Google has these definitions which we call as API improvement proposals. They are basically a set of guidelines which you follow while designing your APIs. And Google uses protobuf definitions to design its APIs. So these are specific to the protobuf definitions. So what we did was we took the collection of public Google APIs which are available publicly. We uploaded all those APIs to the registry that I just talked about. Then we created two definitions. We created a definition for the controller which said that, okay, for every spec that I have, run the API linter on those and store those results as artifacts in the registry. And we also created another entry which said that from these API linter results, calculate scoreboards for me. That was for the controller definition. The second definition that we created was for the scoreboards. And what we defined there was how to extract the number of violations per AIP. Like, when you see this report, the rows are for all the APIs, and all the columns contain the per AIP violations for that particular API. So we created this definition to get this information into our scoreboards, and here was the result. We got the number of violations based on each AIP for all of our Google APIs. And there were some interesting observations that we took from this. This might be obvious, but the larger and older APIs had high number of violations. We saw that ads and compute were the topmost, violating most number of AIPs. We also looked at what kind of AIPs it violated. So as you can see, ads was mainly AIP 215, 192, and 126. And similarly with compute had more focus on specific AIPs. One thing to note here is also AIPs are a set of guidelines and they evolve over time as we learn more about the design standards. So the more the APIs has been around for, the more number of violations it will end up accumulating for newer AIPs. And also we observed that these are sort of larger APIs, so it had large number of operations, which again makes it difficult to, which basically provides a large surface area to introduce violations. We also observed that the reverse was true. We have examples of slightly smaller APIs and newer ones which had comparatively less number of AIP violations. And again, compliance to these AIP rules improves over time. So the smaller the API surface is, the easier it gets to maintain the compliance with these guidelines. And lastly, we also looked at the AIPs itself across all the APIs. So what were the top 3 AIPs which were getting violated across all Google APIs? So we found these 3 were the main ones: field behavior documentation, documentation and custom methods. And we also noted some slight observations where the number of violations for a particular AIP were also dependent on the number of rules it had underneath it, and also how long that particular AIP had been around for. So these were all the observations that we got from just one run of analysis of, by basically looking holistically at a collection of APIs. You can just imagine if you could do this throughout your, continuously as part of your API lifecycle. And you can also, these were just design scores, so you can also do this for other kind of scores like security scores, compliance scores for your APIs. Basically what you think is important for the quality of your APIs. We have a prototype of what this experiment in the registry experimental repo, which basically offers a script to do this on your own. You can do this on Google APIs or any API collection of your choice. And then lastly, again, to iterate over it, this is a part of an open source project. We call it the registry. So please, it's available on GitHub. So please get to know the solution that we have built so far, and let's collaborate to make it better and grow it together. And yeah, that's all I had for the talk. Yep. Any questions? Yes. So this is built using the learnings that we got from the governance system that exists. I can tell you 2 examples of, it's a mixture. Like we have one example where, like the AIPs that you saw, those are the style guides that we use for deciding the design quality of our APIs. But there is also a group of reviewers known as API readability reviewers. These are just a group of engineers who get certified to do these reviews, and they in turn go and help derive the compliance with these guidelines and improve the design of the APIs. So that is one example where it's more distributed and community driven. Second example is more centralized systems where there is a committee which is responsible for doing security reviews for your APIs. That is more of, you need to have specialized expertise to be a part of that committee and do those reviews. So it's a combination of both. And we looked at what is working and what is not working. and we are trying to incorporate those learnings in this solution that we are building. Yeah. Yes. No, it's not. There are different methods of enforcement in Google. It's not done using scorecards right now. Um, it's more built into the tools that we use and the platforms that we are mandated to use to build our APIs. But we also realize that that kind of power or centralized power might not exist in all the organizations. So this is a way to basically surface how your APIs are doing and also in turn enforce good quality for your APIs in the organization. Yep. Yeah. So scorecards are, I can show you an example. Um, it might be small, but so it is basically a definition which uses a CEL expression to define how to extract a score from an artifact. So in the lint results case, I have the report of the API linter for my specs, and I can define this definition which tells what to extract from that result and surface it as a score. And you can also define your own severity level, like 50 to, like, if I have 50 number of violations between 50 to 200, then it's a more severe case compared to the lower violations. Um, so this is what I meant by being customizable. You can decide what you want to show as scores and also how you want to interpret them. Any more questions? Okay, I think that's all then. Thank you. Thank you for attending.